Okay, it's now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. We're all wanting to look forward to see what's going to happen in the capital markets and with private equity in the coming months. So to answer these questions and more is a former chair of the REC and one of the original founders of this forecast. So Ben Loughry with the Overwatch Fund. And if I'm not mistaken, Ben's going to have a special guest for us today. All right, so please welcome Ben.
Good morning. How about good morning? Fort Worth and the fact that we live in Texas. I have one other favor I'd like to ask, and those of you that are in the crowd that either have served or serve on the police department, fire department, or served in our armed forces, or currently serve in our armed forces, would you please stand? The veterans, the police officers, the people that I know you're in the crowd. We respect you and we thank you very much. You're going to see a short clip from the movie Secretariat, probably one of the greatest racehorses that there ever was. But I think what you're going to see depicts some of the feelings we have today, and hopefully I'll tie it in and it'll make sense. So Reggie, if you're ready, let's roll it.
Whole track? I just want him to do it once with nothing in front of him.
Yeah, but I can't see out there.
That's all right. He can.
Oh, come on, Tom. Tom, please. Why do you always have to do this? Shit. Great. Jesus Christ. Wow. Oh my God. Tim?
The skies are a little dark, aren't they? Did you notice the jockey who's ridden that horse many times says, wait a minute, I can't see. The same horse who's run that track, no telling how many times, the track's the same. Ladies and gentlemen, in commercial real estate, the track's the same. Ride the good horse. If we keep doing that in good times and bad, you're going to do quite well. The commercial real estate sector, very simply, the basics are the same. The demand for different sectors, whether in multifamily, office, retail, medical, industrial warehouse, those basics, that track is the same. The demand for the different sectors that you're in, you measure those and you consider those as far as going forward. The stability of the sector you're in. Who predicted COVID? And I know you office guys are going, golly, but who could have predicted that? But there's opportunity. You're starting to see some of that now in that sector. And who predicted that the interest rates were going to go up as much as they have in the shorter period that it's occurred in? So one of the other things we also look at is the quality of the property itself. Reggie, we have the next slide as being the last slide, actually. But the quality of the area you're in, certainly construction's part of it, but also in Overwatch's situation, we invest in income-producing property, so we want to measure what's the quality of the income and what's the quantity of it going forward. What are our risks associated with it? And it gets back to that old saying. We've heard it, I don't know how many times. It's about the location. So I'm going to show you Let's see. Reggie, I don't see it coming up. There we go. These are the states that are losing people. And I'm not here to talk politics. I'm or Democratic or Republican or independent. I'm independent. But look at these states that are losing people. What color are those states? They're all blue. But let's look at the states that are gaining people. All red. That says a lot for our country. I was real pleased when I looked at this to note that every property that Overwatch has in our portfolio are located in these states. We look for growth, we look for opportunities. But there are a couple other things that affect all of us, and I bring these up that you know this information, but I just want to highlight it. This is what's happened to the 30-year mortgage rate. And by the way, certainly it's more difficult to buy a house with the rates going up, just the cost of ownership. But from the standpoint of the B-class multifamily that we own, it's created more renters. So we're holding up pretty darn well. And also, we have a lot of people in our growth areas that don't want to buy because they want to see if it's going to work for a while, so they rent. And you can see what's happened to our national home price index. I would tell you, and remember this is national, so that includes areas that the home prices are going down, they're losing employment and so forth too. Texas is the exception, and you'll see in my predictions in a minute what I think is going to happen. So I have two areas that I want to talk about. That's the capital markets and private equity. If I was making this talk 6 months ago, my private equity section would probably be 2 or 3 pages. Today, it's about a paragraph. There's not a whole lot going on. I would say there are a couple things, and many of you in the audience I talk with about what's occurring in the different markets and get your take on things. But there was one comment that was made by a lender, and they just said, Ben, it is just muted out there. Someone has hit the mute button. So the number of people lending in the market has dropped quite a bit. But I want to tell you where the money is. Look around this room, and I will venture to say there are quite a few local bank lenders, regional lenders, and some national banks that are sitting in this room, and they are lending money. If you don't have a good relationship with at least a couple banks, then do it. You'll see people here, get their card, go visit with them. They'll provide 2 things to you. One, they're looking for relationships, and they have money to lend, and they have much more flexibility. Why? Well, they're lending on your integrity, they're lending on your experience, they're lending on your history, they're lending on the real estate, but it's a relationship-driven opportunity for you and them. Plus, they can provide you a lot of market information. You can call that lender and say, what's going on in the market? And I ask them bluntly, I said, are you guys lending on real estate? And they will tell you, yes, no, well, in certain circumstances. Ask them. But get at least 2 good relationships that you can do that with. I also encourage you to get good relationship with a private equity firm or 2 or 3. If you're developing or you need equity to buy a property that you like, that's where we come into play. We're here to provide equity to help you make that opportunity and give you input on what we see and what we think might be done to make it more profitable for everybody. Also, back to the lender side. When you talk to local banks, and I was visiting with one of the chairmen just the other day, and I said, well, what are y'all doing? SOFR's this and LIBOR's that. And this person said, Ben, Yeah, we know what LIBOR is and SOFR is, but that's not what guides us. What guides us is the relationship. What guides us is someone that we can have confidence in, and they know what they're doing in the market, and we will adjust the rate, one, if they've been a good customer of ours, to accommodate them and help them in their success. We also want to make things work. We want to make solid loans. And if it's a good, solid opportunity, we're going to try to make it work for you. On loan to values in the market, we're seeing on improved properties, very low end 50%, high end's about 70% loan to value, and it'll be loan to value or sales price, whichever is lower. And land, we're seeing loans of about 50%. The current rate that we're seeing right now is running in the 5.5% to 7% rate, usually interest only for 3 to 5 years, and terms are 5 to 10 years for the loan itself. It may be amortized over 10 to 25, maybe 30 years, but 5 to 10 is the term of the loan. We just got a quote on a variable rate. And by the way, we buy insurance caps on everything we do if it's variable, but we just got quoted SOFR plus 2.6 points. SOFR is at 3.4, I believe. So that would put it at, let's see, right at 6%. The other thing, there's significant capital sitting on the sidelines. In fact, I've advised many of our investors, keep some dry powder. And many of them say, I'm sitting on more money than I've ever sat on in my life for a couple reasons. One, they see more risk in the market. They don't know what the downturn is going to look for, but they also want good opportunities. And by good opportunities, that's in the growth markets that I talked about earlier, those 10 states. Let me make one other comment, because you may say, well, there are opportunities in other states besides those or other areas. You're right. There may be something economically that's going on in a state or an area that makes it a real good opportunity. Years ago, I'll just, as an example, Corpus Christi, when they started enlarging that port and Exxon started building that refinery down there, things boomed. And we bought quite a few properties there and did quite well with them. We still have properties in that area and are doing well. So there are exceptions to things. Overwatch's target returns are 20% a year, and we've returned just under 30% a year to our investors over the last 5 years. We typically hold property for 3 to 5 years, and at the end of that period, we'll either recapitalize it by refinancing it and return equity, or a sale will occur, some type of capital event. In the last 3 years, we've had quite a few transactions that have occurred in 18 to 24 months. Our sectors that we've been involved in are multifamily B class and industrial properties, warehouse, and flex properties. In the B class properties, most of what we buy were built in the 80s and 90s. Our acquisition price per unit, the best price we got recently, was about $60,000 a unit, and we paid up to $150,000 a unit for B class. I mention that to you because there's a reason, a rationale for what we do. Construction costs for new A-class projects in multifamily run roughly from $185,000 a unit up to $250,000, and yeah, we hear even higher than $250,000, but that's roughly the range that we see. So there's a large gap in what we're buying units for and what it costs to build. That makes it, I think, a very attractive investment. The other part is there's still a significant difference in the A-class rents to the B-class rents, as low as 30% and as high as 60% gap. So with that kind of gap, it makes an attractive opportunity. The other sectors being the B industrial warehouse and flex space, and that's sector's been strong due to the just-in-time requirements, and then also specific use needs that require industrial-type zoning. That would be for contractors, manufacturers, people of that sort. We do not compete in the A class. I think Mike Berry's here someplace, but those guys at Alliance, and I know Reed's here, he's going to present in a little bit, you'll hear a lot about what they're doing. We can't compete with them. We don't try. They're probably, if not the best in the world, one of the best in the world on what they do. But people do say, well, gosh, I want to build something up there, but I don't know. I will tell you, Overwatch was buying a multifamily project up in the Fossil Creek area, and I called Mike and I said, Mike, what do you think about the market? Do y'all have many multifamily sites you're going to be building on? What do you see happening up there? We had a great discussion. Let me tell you couple things about Mike. You can trust him. He's reliable, and he'll just shoot you straight. And he's one of the guys, we talk, we've been friends a long time, but we'll talk about every 6 months to a year, and it usually goes something like this. I'll call or we'll run into each other and say, it's been too long, let's get together and talk. And when we get together, yeah, we talk about fishing and hunting and TCU, the real estate deal out there, and a lot of things, but we always get around to real estate and what's going on. You need those relationships. The Real Estate Council does that for you. It's a great source and a great way to get, if you're new in the business and you go, well, Ben, you've been in this business a long time. Well, you have access to these opportunities and bounce things off of them and find out. And Mike's a good source. Mike's cell phone number is, I'm just kidding, Mike, I'm not going to do it. So that's what Overwatch does. We provide money for your opportunities, and we also provide input on what we see and what might make your deal work better or maybe creates issues for you. We, in many cases, have things brought to us that we don't participate in, but we help them. We try to give them ideas on maybe who to go to or something they could do different that could make it attractive. And I would like to introduce our newest associate partner, actually, to Overwatch Fund, and that's Barry Croman. I think Barry's here. I thought I saw him. But Barry just came on board. He's been in the banking business for quite some time. Okay, let me get to my predictions. Average 30-year home mortgage rates will hover in the 6 to 7% range this year. Home prices, in my opinion, will rise about 6% in the DFW market. Does that surprise you? Because we're all hearing, house prices are coming down because of the high interest rates. Well, that's true, but in DFW, we don't have a big supply of homes. And we've got a ton of people moving here. At least that's my rationale for the 6% increase. And I just bought a house, so I need it to go up in value. A substantial tenant will vacate or at least announce their vacation in downtown Fort Worth. Commercial real estate transactions in the growth areas, that being the red states, will grow substantially in the third and last quarter of this year. I think you'll see a lot of opportunity in the last portion. And here's the reason. I think the Federal Reserve's is going to raise up to 75 more points. It came out today that maybe they will only do a quarter-point raise, but I anticipate that they'll do up to a 75 to 100-point raise before they slow down, and I think that'll occur in the second or third quarter of this year. And last, no, I didn't do predictions last year, but if I had done a prediction, TCU will beat Georgia in the national final. Well, close. But what a season. I don't know about y'all, but I love college football. I saw some of the most fun college football I've ever seen this last year, and TCU was just a thrill to see. I'm pleased next to introduce a good friend and a true patriot. This individual has served our country for the last 9 years, I believe, in Congress. And he was recently named chairman of the Small Business Administration. And let me tell you, there's nothing small. That's a Small Business Administration Committee as chair of that. But there's nothing small about it. I would guess that most of us in here would qualify as small businesses. Please help me welcome as your surprise guest this morning, Roger Williams. Roger.
Thank you, Ben, for that great introduction. And Ben and I were in second grade together, so that tells you what we know about each other. But a couple things I would say, go Frogs, right? We're pretty proud of those guys. 13 victories and second in the nation. Who would have thunk it? And also, I saw Mayor Barr out there, one of my buddies, and I asked him how long he thought I should speak today. He said, I don't know how long you're speaking, but I'm leaving in 12 minutes. And then Betsy told me, she said, don't be partisan like Ben was this morning, okay? And so forth. So what I thought I'd do briefly is kind of give you an overview of what's happening in D.C. I will tell you, all of you, that's an honor to serve in the United States Congress. And Ben said 9 years, actually been 12. So, but, so let me just hit on some high points. But I will say this, right now in this economy and everything, we still live in the greatest country in the world. There is no question. America is the greatest country in the world. I think all of us would agree with that. And Texas is the greatest state in America. And I'm not so sure, Ben, right, that the best place in Texas isn't right here. So we are in the right spot. The political environment in Washington, I mean, you watch TV, you follow it. I don't have to describe it to you, but we have got a new Congress that now has a majority of only 4 for Republicans. So we're going to have to do some bipartisan things if we're going to get anything done. And just as a reminder, I'm a car dealer, so I tell people I'm used to hitting you up here. You're used to hitting me down here. David and we settle in the middle. And there's no reason we can't do America the same way. And so we got things that you're going to be reading about. But I will tell you, Ben touched about interest rates. I think you're going to see the Fed. You're going to see the Fed raise rates a couple more times, whether they be a quarter, half, I don't know. But it's a bad situation we're in because they're chasing funny money. And I go back to, when I look at today, I go back to 1981. A lot of you can remember 81. When you can go to the Fort Worth National Bank in 1981, if you had any cash, you get 19% for a 2-year CD. We had 20% interest rates. We had high inflation. Now, and it took us 10 years to get out of it. Now, the problem we got now is we got kind of the same thing as 81, except it's kind of reversed. You got inflation higher than your interest rates. And your principal balances are so much higher. Back in 81, you could buy a Chevy pickup from me for $5,500 and finance it at 20%. Now you buy a pickup from me for $100,000 and you finance it at 8%. So we're kind of in the same situation, except one difference. Back in 81, as many of you that remember 81, back in 81, unlike now, we had something to sell. Supply chain is in a really bad situation right now. But back then we had something to sell that we could claw our way out of it. And Ben, you talked about the homes. I mean, we have a low inventory in homes too. So there's some of that going around. But we've got to begin to stop the interest rate raises, and we've got to stop inflation, begin to catch up with it. And the way to stop inflation, quite frankly, in my mind, is to create product, create a supply side. We need to create incentives for businesses to build here in America. America needs to control the world economy, not be controlled by the world economy. And we can do that by incentivizing and getting businesses here to build product and begin to stop inflation and quit borrowing and let competition work, because competition is the greatest thing we got going on Main Street America. But so I think and the supply side is important. I'll just continue on that real quick. But this supply chain is a big problem for us in any industry. I know you have it in the home industry with your building a home and costs so much for this particular product or whatever. But in my business, in the car business, we normally have 800 units on the ground in one of our dealerships. and now we have 50. And it's true with every car dealer. And the problem is, just as an example, you can buy your car cheaper when I got 800 on the ground when you can 50. So we don't have anything driving costs down. I gave a speech in Cleburne the other day, and the fellow that owns a Western wear store said he couldn't get cowboy hats in Cleburne, Texas. And my wife called me today and said, I got great news. I got baby Clara's going to spend the weekend with us. I said, that's fantastic. But she said, we got a problem. I said, what's the problem? She said, I can't find tater tots. Okay, now I'm not saying this to be funny, but you get the picture. And then go out and try to buy an American flag today. There's a 2-week delay. That's the economy we're in. Whether it be cars or widgets or homes or air conditioners or whatever, we got to build the supply. The demand, I believe, is still there. But we got to build the supply, and we have to do that. America has to do that. So that's one issue. Then the other issue is the debt, which affects all of us. We got a $32 trillion debt. That's pretty unbelievable. You probably watched the news this morning. We'll be out of money, I think, tomorrow. In America, that's not necessarily the case, okay? But we got to stop the spending, and we have more cash flow going through our country than ever before. But it's like our businesses. We sell more, but we spend more. You never get caught up. So we're going to have to address the debt. And the problem with that is each time the Fed raises money on us, we're raising money on ourselves. So we're raising money on $32 trillion in debt. And pretty soon you get up around 7-8%. Your GDP does not equal your interest. Now, that's a bad economy. And that's a problem we got to focus on, and we've got to do something about the debt. We've got to cut expenses. We've got to create income. Nothing different than what we do every single day in our businesses. And then we got to come up with it. We got to have a budget. We haven't had a budget in America since 1996, since President Bill Clinton. We haven't had a budget. We deal on CR, continuing resolutions, which just says, well, I'm going to spend this month the same thing I spent last month, and last month, David, is what got us in debt. So it's not a good business model, and we have to fix that. The other thing is now the two committees that I serve on the Banking Committee, the Financial Services, which oversees banks, money supply, et cetera. And for you bankers out there, we're going to go hard to reduce some regulations that are keeping you from loaning money to a lot of us in this room. We got to cut regulations. We got to do something about the CFPB. That's a bipartisan thing. But just make it easier for banks to loan money to customers and do business as they want to on an individual basis. That's going to be really important. As Ben did touch on, I've got elected, which I'm really excited about, being chairman of the Small Business Committee. Everybody's a small business. Small business is big business in America. Main Street America is what it's all about. And we're going to really focus on our committee and make it easier for you to start a business, keep a business. We're going to talk about tax cuts. We're going to talk about opportunity, entrepreneurship. What really makes the country great. And again, those are non-bipartisan. Those are bipartisan issues. And you're going to find with our committees, you watch us move along and so forth, that we're going to be a happy committee. We're going to be smiling. We're not going to be just beating everybody up in the world, because we've got to keep this engine of economics going. We can't be looking back on what the other guy's doing. We got to talk about what we're doing. We got to offer fair rates. We got to offer inventory of homes and so forth. And Ben touched on it. We see more and more people renting and leasing than buying because they can't afford to buy and realize the American dream. I see it in my business, in the automobile business. More people you can't afford to finance $100,000 over 5 years. You just can't do it. So we see more people leasing, and we see more people leasing in homes and so forth to try to get a jump start to where they can buy their home. And we need to be able to fix that where people can realize the American dream earlier rather than later. But we're in our Small Business Committee. We do oversee the SBA. A lot of you probably do business with the SBA. I think we can make it more aggressive. We can make it more customer friendly. We can make it something that people can begin their dream from, and not be so government heavy-handed. And also, we're going to focus, too, on safety on streets, which is a big deal, because all of us that own businesses, we want to be able to have safe streets. We don't need people stealing things and this and that. We want people to be able to shop at night and do those kind of things, and that's important issues. So we could talk all day long about what's going up in D.C., but I will just tell you this. I think things look pretty good. We're going to be forced to be bipartisan, which I want to do. There's going to be things we're all going to agree to and get things done. And I would like to see in Washington, none of us in this room agree on everything, but we all agree on something. And I think what we need to be doing in D.C. is find out what we agree on and go talk about it, rather than what we disagree on, and just stand still and make it and make everybody out here, like all of us business people, play defense rather than offense. We need to be playing offense. We need to know we got the best rates. We need to know we got the best product. We know we need to know we got the best service, and we got the strongest Main Street America anywhere in this country is right here where we are. And it's all about risk and reward. You still got to be able to take risk, and you got to get reward, and you got to be able to start a new business. And you can't do that without the bankers. You can't do that without equities. So we're going to be kind of focusing on all that. It's a great time to represent all of you, but I do believe, as we said earlier, we do sit in the best spot to make these things happen. So with that in mind, I want to again thank you for allowing me to serve. Thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. If we can ever do anything for you in Washington, D.C. or whatever, I'm here all the time. You just name it, and we will give you service, because at the end of the day, you are a customer. So God bless all of you, and God bless America. Thanks a lot.